Sorry, my battery power here is very low, so it's dangling over here. Okay.
Tony, did you ever get out to the home and look at that thing they did with their solar panels?
Yeah, actually, Dana and I took a little road trip with masks on and had a look around.
Oh, good. Yeah, I was there earlier in the morning, and I changed my time so to meet it with you guys, and you weren't there. But anyway, had a good visit. Really nice couple, and I was interested to see how they did with those solar panels because, you know, in this sort of northern climate, I was really quite pleased with how much power they were able to achieve.
Well, they were saying that they're pretty much not paying for electricity at this point in time.
Yeah.
They're hooked into the grid, so they got no batteries to basically store it.
Just be mindful that this is live and it's being recorded. So
All right. I'm not mentioning any names, just chatting.
I can just have a moment to all our guests that have joined us. If you wouldn't mind, please keeping your microphones muted and your cameras turned off, and I will let you know when it's your turn to speak. Thank you.
welcome to the meeting, Balto. My dog is beside me as well. So we're 7 o'clock here, so right on the hour. So I would like to call our regular council meeting of February the 8th to order. And our first item of business is just to recognizing that we are meeting virtually on the territory of the Sauk Nation. Our first resolution is regarding Ministerial Order M192. That council is holding this meeting without members of the public in attendance under Ministerial Order M192, as council chambers cannot safely accommodate the unknown number of public participants wishing to attend, and that council is committed to ensuring openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability through the submission of written comments and the provision of live and recorded broadcasts of the meeting. So look for a mover, please, of item 6. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Any comments? Been through this one before. Anyway, all those in favor, please. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. The second part there actually is item 6, and that is approval of tonight's agenda. And councillors, just be mindful that there is new business and supplementary information. So I'll look for approval of the meeting of the agenda for February 8th regular meeting of council. Be adopted as circulated with the supplementary info. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. All those in favor, please. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. So that opens us next to item 7, which is public and statutory hearings. So I'm just going to ask our corporate officer at this point. I ask you this all the time, but in regards to the statement, I'm just looking at this. It says open the public hearing. So am I to read the statement now or after the staff report?
Now, please, the staff report is part of the public hearing.
Thank you for that clarity. So this public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act. At this public hearing, any person who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the bylaw that are the subject of this hearing. Copies of written submissions received to date are available. It is important that all who speak at this hearing restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaw, and it is my responsibility as chair of this hearing to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. For those of you who wish to speak, please at the appropriate time commence your address to council by clearly stating your name and municipality of residence. Then you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposed bylaw. Submissions must be received before or during the public hearing in order to be considered by council. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions of you following your presentation or submission. However, the main function of council members this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. Everyone who deems his or her interest in property to be affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard at this hearing. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making his or her view known. Please note that this hearing forms part of tonight's regular meeting of council and as such is being video recorded. Videos and their contents, including any personal information disclosed during this hearing, will be posted and remain on the district website. So on that note, I officially declare the public hearing open and will now turn to staff for our presentation regarding 5126 Sooke Road, please.
Thank you. I'll just begin here with sharing my screen. I think it might have froze 1 second here. Right. Can you see the screen with the two maps on there?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Thanks. All right. The applicant has submitted a rezoning application to rezone approximately 1.35 hectares from the rural RU2 zoning to general commercial C2, as shown on the outlined area of the subject property map on the left. This rezoning will allow the owners to maintain their 3.98 hectares of commercially zoned land because 1.35 hectares will be removed for the Highway 14 realignment as shown on the map to the right. You can just see with the cursor here, this is the future highway alignment area hatched out there. Extending the commercial zoning north will allow Adrenaline, a business that has been displaced by the highway realignment, to relocate and continue operating. The rezoning will also allow the owner to develop a small commercial development within the new Gillespie Access Road roundabout. These services will complement the highway improvements and provide commercial convenience services to an area with limited choices. The lands on which the 17 Mile Pub and Liquor Store are located are not subject to the rezoning as these lands remain within the existing C2 zoning. So this map here is just showing a bit of what the highway realignment improvement project looks like from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. And the area around the 17 Mile site will include a new transit interchange on the north and south sides of the highway with the safe pedestrian connections to the north and south of the highway and a park and ride facility as well. So notwithstanding the rezoning, the applicant has applied for a subdivision to create 3 new lots, which are shown here with the stars on the map on the left. The lots shown by the blue stars will become isolated parcels bounded by realigned road rights-of-way and the configuration of the new Gillespie Road interchange. The third lot, shown with the red star, will be the new location for Adrenaline with proposed parking facilities, zip lining, and administrative offices. The plan to the right shows a conceptual commercial complex and the location of the existing pond. A qualified environmental professional has reviewed the site and has recommended that the streamside protection enhancement area can be reduced from the 30 meters down to 10 meters. This plan is an example here on the screen of what a rural style commercial complex could look like. To achieve compliance with the official community plan and the rural residential designation, staff recommends prohibiting uses which typically operate in a more urban area and which require extensive services from locating on the properties subject to the rezoning. The applicant has agreed to the proposed prohibited uses as presented in the zoning amendment bylaw. Staff recommend adding amusement facility outdoor to the permitted uses in the C2 zoning to allow Adrenaline to operate as a permitted principal use. Staff also recommend adding community care facility to provide potential daycare opportunities and replace one accessory dwelling unit per lot with one accessory duplex per lot to allow for an additional dwelling unit for caretakers and or the employees. The development permit for form and character is not required at this point in time under the current official community plan. When the owners are ready to develop the property, staff will review the bylaw of the day, including the official community plan, to determine if a development permit is required prior to a building permit. A landscape proposal has been prepared by the landscape architects, and this plan provides an excellent detailed illustration of the compensation plan and recommendations presented in the habitat assessment. Prior to issuance of the development variance permit, this plan will be finalized and attached as a schedule to that permit. The landscape plan also provides an illustration of what a building site may look like adjacent to the stream site protection enhancement area. Details with regards to landscaping outside of this area within the commercial site will be reviewed further at a time of development, either through a development permit process if the official community plan of the day requires such, or at the building permit stage. At that time, a stormwater management plan will be required to be submitted. Specific measures such as permeable paving and materials will be reviewed as methods to prevent stormwater runoff from entering the area untreated. The rezoning application as presented is supported by the official community plan and staff. The development variance permit is supported with the condition that the land be developed in accordance with the habitat assessment and the landscape streamside protection enhancement area restoration plan. That concludes my presentation, and the applicant and their consultants are also in attendance tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Powell, for the presentation. So procedurally what will happen now is I'll turn to councillors to see if you have any questions from staff and or the applicant. And once that is completed, then we'll turn to members of the public that would like to present to us, and then we'll carry on from there. So any questions from members of council? Councillor Beddoes?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is, I guess, for staff or the applicant, is that pond that's there. I understand that that is a man-made development that came into being when they realigned the road some 30 years ago, and it wasn't a pond before that. It's just backed up since. Is that a correct statement?
I will speak. Yes, I think Justin is also on this call from Toronto. But yes, that is correct.
Excuse me, sir. Could you please just introduce ourselves so the viewing public knows who you are?
Yes. My apologies.
That's okay.
Madam Mayor. Dean Strongatharm. I am actually the applicant on behalf of the Wilson family, and I'm a planning consultant. And as I say to the councillor's question, yes, it was something that was man-made as a result of the highway realignment, oh gosh, many years ago, but it is now subject to riparian area regulations because there is connectivity to a creek downstream.
Okay, thank you for that.
Other questions from members of council? Councillor Bateman, then St. Pierre.
Yeah, so my question through you to staff revolves around the pond and the setback and the fact that the Aquatex report will be, and the landscape plan will be a part of the development variance permit. How does the district monitor the actual implementation of that landscape plan?
Mr. Pello?
So as part of the landscape plan and the agreement for that, there'll be a number of plantings and other features that are included as part of that. So in addition to any securities bonding that's provided as part of that process, they'll be released at significant portions when the applicant indicates that all works have been completed. So it will go through a staff review process.
Okay, thank you. Councillor St. Pierre?
I was particularly impressed in previous presentations because this particular development at that point was including mention of staff housing and potential daycare facility. And I was just curious, how likely are those two things to actually happen? Are they a definite part of the development, or just wondering what our likelihood is? Thank you.
It's Dean Strong-Atharm speaking again, and once again, Justin may be able to speak, or other member of the family, but it's not absolutely certain. But with the thought process around the daycare is that because it will be a park and ride, and because of the sort of the transit stop, it's thought that it would be a really good spot for that to occur. So obviously we don't have anyone lined up, or the Wilson family doesn't have anyone lined up, but it just seems to be kind of a natural fit. So that's why we wanted to make sure that that was included. And then similarly, was as far as the potential for housing and having either a caretaker on site or some staff housing, that's always been a real issue these days. I don't think I have to tell anyone in council about the cost of affordable housing. So once again, it's not specifically that there's something identified for tomorrow afternoon, but it's just realize the circumstances that we're living in, that we wanted to have that, the Wilson family wants to have that opportunity to allow for that. I don't know. I trust that's answered the question.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of council? Okay, see none. So I'm going to ask our corporate officer, Ms. Machada, are you able to introduce the members of the public? And may I hand that to you?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Besides the applicants and family members, I believe the only person I have registered to speak is Luke Deering, but he did also mention that he may have a neighbor with him who would also like to speak to it.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Deering. And if your neighbor is present, if you could introduce your neighbor as well, please.
Hello, Luke Deering here and Brian Sawyer. We together own the properties that border where the proposed development for the zip line would go. We've both been living at our properties for more than 15 years, Brian for over 30. When the zip line went in long ago, a few years ago, it disturbed our serenity in our properties. You know, a property where we play with our young families, and when we purchased the properties, backed onto rural property with no chance of commercial development. So having the site located directly on our property line for the commercial development of the zip line is I think something we'd like to explore. I think that the exposure to rural property crime as it continues to increase in our area is a concern for both of us, or myself in particular. The safety of my children in the back with cars and buses as our property borders that. And then of course, the increased noise level from currently screaming zipline riders down, and these noises carry through the forest to our houses, and having the buses unload there in large parking lots is something that I'm interested to discuss with the applicants, what sort of noise abatement, and a bunch of further questions as I've outlined in my letter to council. So I think we are the two affected properties for this development. As mentioned, the other locations are surrounded by highway, but these ones do definitely border on rural properties, which we purchased many years ago, decades ago, and has changed the It's changed everything for our property. So further development is, it's, again, we need to discuss what is going on in terms of noise control, security, and what the plan is for the zip lines. Will there be added zip lines put in? What sort of staffing will be there? How many people are they expected? What are the proposed openings of the zip line? Is it going to extend past the current openings in the summer? Or is it going to continue just being a 4 to 6 month opening? And I think my main question is, why is the proposed commercial development bordering on our RU2 zoned properties when there's plenty of other land on the applicant's property where they could house this commercial development, which would be surrounded by their own property as opposed to bordering on our property? So I think that is the main question that I have. Brian, would you like to add?
Well, it's supposed to be rural, and I can't see why they're putting it, changing that to commercial use so close to where we are, which is supposed to be rural. It doesn't make sense to me, and I say I don't like to be next to a bunch of stores, you know, with people doing their, you know, purchasing of commercial stuff. It just doesn't seem right to me. That we should change the rural standard of it.
Mm-hmm. Brian actually will have the entrance road to the zip line redevelopment will actually ride about 75 to 100 feet from Brian's property, or from his house.
From his yeah.
So yeah, and that was consistent before of RU2 zone property. And now it's already been logged and developed ahead of the zoning application, actually, which I understand is okay, but
this new road, by the way, is 4 acres of my property was requisitioned. It cuts right across my property. This new road, so it's quite a shock.
Mm-hmm. This is behind.
Thank you, Mr. Deering. Mr. Brian, I'm sorry, could I catch your last name again, please?
So sorry.
Your last name.
My name is Sawyer. S-A-W.
Sawyer. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sawyer and Mr. Deering. Maybe what we can do is I'll see if there's other, I think you're the only members of the public present.
Okay.
Is that, and then I can have, it looks like the applicant is able to answer these questions for you. So we'll sort of go through it. Sorry, it's a bit clunky, but it's our way of doing this hearing right now. Ms. Machada, is that correct that Mr. Deering and Mr. Sawyer are only 2 registered speakers?
I have Bethany Wilson, Jeremy Wilson, and Justin Wilson. If any of them wanted to speak, now would be the time. Otherwise, we just have the applicant.
Jeremy Wilson can speak.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, are you able to turn your camera on?
Unfortunately, it is not working. I have tried, and it did work last council meeting. For some reason, it doesn't. If it's okay, I can just speak, and I apologize that I can't use the video.
We can hear you. That's fine.
Okay, so
I can see him.
Yeah. Yeah, and first of all, you know, I appreciate your thoughts and our neighbors. I mean, I've lived here for 45 years, and my family bought the property in 1940. So, and Brian, I really do sympathize with where you're located. And I know when we built the zip lines, we had conversations to try to mitigate those noises. And I could really understand your concerns with the zip lines. I'm happy to see, like, this. Obviously, we didn't ask for highways to come move 3 of our zip lines. So, but for answer your question, for quietness, those zip lines are actually the ones that you would hear are no longer there. So we're now rebuilding way up the back. So the noises that you more likely heard, or those lines no longer exist. So I think just to answer that component of the noise, I feel that the noise component related to the zip lines would be less. So I'm just answering that component. But as far as operational changes and so forth. That's a longer conversation, and I'd be happy to talk to you and try to address some of your guys' concerns.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to our corporate officer to work through the speakers list, please.
Yes, I believe Justin Wilson has his camera on and would like to speak. Need to unmute your microphone, Mr. Wilson.
There you go. Sorry, can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Just for clarity purposes, I think, yeah, my brother Jeremy just spoke. He's a little more familiar with the zipline operations. And I believe the home that these gentlemen are speaking about are a beam commercially zoned property already. And then the zoning's pushing farther up. So I think it may be worth identifying on a map, which your corporate officer already showed, to identify where the gentleman's house is. And the zoning, like I said, his house is a beam commercial zoning already. So I think he's maybe just a little unaware where the commercial zoning was. So his house bordered on a C2 zoning before.
My property did not.
Yeah, and I guess I'm unfamiliar with where your property is, and I think I just understand where the other gentleman's property is.
Mm-hmm. Mine's the next one up. Where my kid's fort is where the view of your building will go, right adjacent to where we've been playing for the last 15 years.
Yeah, you know what, I think my brother summarized it. Ministry of Transport came to us and pushed a highway through our property. So certainly there's a sacrifice going on our side of the property line. I can tell you that. You know, a tree just hit my chicken coop on my house. I live across the street, and I'm losing quite a bit of my own property. So in the name of progress, you know, our family's been disrupted quite a lot. And so we're trying to pick together our pieces. And, you know, I would certainly be, like my brother, certainly happy to sit down with you guys and work the best we can for something that's kind of thrown on everybody's plate in our area.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have the same economic
Thank you.
benefit.
Sorry, I do need. Thank you. I am chairing this meeting, so I just need to move through it in the best way. And what council is doing tonight through this rezoning is hearing the views of the public that are impacted. So that's where we do appreciate you raising this to our concerns so that we can take this into consideration going forward. Ms. Machada, can I turn back to you to work through the speakers list?
I'll just ask if there is anybody else on the meeting that would like to speak to this item. Now is your opportunity. Either turn your camera on or raise your hand. I don't see anything, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I'll just call then Mr. Deering, or sorry, Mr. Sawyer, do you have other comments that you would like to make?